very pleased it's in December and then in January we submitted 10 priorities on that list. And we received funding for 3, which were Banting Memorial High School replacement, which is a project we have been working on for 7 years. Killarney Beach Public School and addition, and a new elementary school in Orillia. And we also received some childcare space in Beaton. So those were very welcomed projects. We did receive the most funding in the province, and Banting was the largest funded project across the province. So we're very, very excited to be able to move forward with that. And quite by surprise, in early February, the ministry announced a call for capital priorities that we were not expecting, and it caught boards across the province off guard. So with a very, very tight turnaround time, the capital priorities have to be submitted by tomorrow. And we were asked to submit 5 priorities, 3 from our previous list submission, and 2 new priorities that were not on the submission list that we did in April of 2021. The ministry also specified the requirements for the projects to be submitted. And they were very specific in what they were looking for these projects. They needed to deal with accommodation pressure. They needed to do with a school consolidation or facility condition that did not require an ARC. And I'm not sure everyone's familiar with an ARC, but it is a combination review. And we use those to address aging infrastructure, under enrollment, and it usually results in a closure, or quite often results in a closure of a school. And those projects that we submit related to that could not reduce accommodation below 100%. So there were parameters tied to what projects would qualify for that. And then the third requirement was a French language accommodation, so which did not apply to our board. So staff have worked, it caught us off guard in the fact that we were bringing our capital plan, or our new, what we've referred to as our accommodation plan, forward next month. And so staff had to work to move that up to address this. So we did have a board meeting last night, and the recommendations of staff did come forward from that meeting. What they did do was an updated list of all the capital priorities that we anticipate needing and will be on our accommodation plan coming forward, which, for your information, does include a new Wasaga Beach Secondary School. So it is identified as one of our projects, and it has been broken out and separated from Collingwood. So we were on that plan, we're looking for a replacement and right sizing school for Collingwood, as well as a new Wasaga Beach Secondary School. So when the recommendations from staff came through, they recommended 5 projects. 3 from our previous list, which was the new Angus Elementary School. And just so everyone's aware, we have enough students in Angus and Portables to fill an entire elementary school at the moment. A new Alliston Elementary School, that is a growth, and new Bradford Secondary School as well for growth. Then the 2 projects that were recommended that had to be new and not on our priority list from the last submission was an addition at Nantire Shores to address growth, and an addition at Arda Bluff to address growth as well. So staff put forward those rationales. And so these projects have to be built by 26-27. So they're very tight timelines as well. So we had to look at projects where we had access to the land was serviced. It was dealing with critical accommodation pressures, and we had to look at other options for sites where we couldn't meet these quick timelines. So we had a healthy discussion last night at our board meeting with respect to these projects, and they were approved. The staff recommendation were approved. moving forward with the new Wasaga Beach Secondary School, and we're very committed, as has been expressed to you before, to building a high school in Wasaga Beach. We know that the community wants a high school and we recognize that, but from my perspective, it needs to be done at the right time and with the right sizing for that school. So at this time, and based upon the current enrollment numbers in Wasaga Beach, we anticipate that the school in Wasaga Beach will be open by 2029, 2030 for that school year, which means that we're hoping that as we move forward and we deal with the capital priorities that we've been submitted, and we're always hopeful we get all 5. We don't know if that will happen, but we're very hopeful. And I have had discussions with the Minister of Education to stress to him the growth we have and the need to accommodate that growth. And that when we get the next call, we would be looking to put Wasaga Beach on there. One of the key factors in building a strong business case for the Wasaga Beach Secondary School is having the sufficient numbers of students to generate the funds we need to build the school. So right now there's about 630 students from Wasaga Beach. Our target is 800. Ideally 900, but 800 is our target. That would generate sufficient per pupil revenue to allow us to build a school with fulsome program space. And so, if we don't get sufficient revenue, it would limit the opportunities that we could include in the school. And we want to ensure it has all the technology space that's needed. And, trade programming is very important. So we need to have that volume of students to generate the revenue we need to build the school. And I'm very committed that when we build a school, it needs to be a quality school that meets the needs of the students now and into the future. We're looking 50 years out when we build a high school. So it's really, really important we have that mass of students to generate that revenue. So that's sort of the updated timelines with respect to the high school and where we're at. And I know there's always a lot of discussion with respect to growth and housing developments, but I think it's always important to remember that as a board, we look at student numbers. That's what generates our business cases, is the number of students, not the number of housing developments. And it's always important to remember that there's 4 publicly funded education systems in the province of Ontario. So there may be housing developments and they may generate students, per household yield is much lower than it once was. But those students are not necessarily our students. They can go to the Catholic Board, the French Public, or the French Catholic Board. So we can't work with those whole numbers. We can only work with the number of students that would be registered or attending our schools. So that's sort of where we are. We are hoping, and the minister in discussion has committed to more regular calls for capital priorities. As we know, we're going into provincial elections, so we don't know what the outcome will be or what the future looks like, but the minister has certainly committed to having more regular calls for capital priorities, recognizing the need doesn't go away, and that specifically boards such as ours experiencing massive growth, need more frequent calls for capital and need to invest. So there, in this current call, there is 500 million in funding available that will be shared across all 72 boards in the province. So we're very hopeful that, our staff have a great history of building very strong business cases for submission. And we've been very, very successful in securing capital funding. So we're hoping and keeping our fingers crossed that we're just as successful with these priorities. So thank you, and I'm more than happy to answer questions. And I know Trustee Snell is here with me as well as the local trustee. So we're hoping between the two of us, any questions you may have, we collectively together will have the information for you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I did watch last night's board meeting, and I encourage others to watch it. I think it had, your staff explained the process and the information and those types of things that go into making these decisions. I think you had 20 days, including weekends, to put together your most recent proposals, and you know, at the end of the day, Wasaga Beach just didn't fit the criteria for that. And I think it's important that our community have facts and information about these types of things, because there's far too many things we read online that aren't accurate, including numbers of students. And, you know, the census numbers came out and it looks great because we're growing and everything else, but the demographics of who's moving into those homes is really, really important. And I trust the school board staff the most to know how many students you have. You track those numbers better than anyone else. So I'm confident that we will get a school at the right time. And I was very happy when, I think it was Superintendent Dance last night, said 2029 is roughly when it would be occupied. So that is very exciting for the town of Wasaga Beach. So thank you for that update, and I will open it up for questions from council. Councillor Belanger.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not quite as enthusiastic. I watched the meeting last night as well. And I want to thank our trustee Schnell for putting forward amendment to having Wasaga Beach added to the priority list. And I just want to point out that the municipalities number here in Wasaga Beach are outstripping the projections of both the school board and the county for population growth. And even in the meeting, they indicated that it really wasn't Wasaga Beach, that Wasaga Beach would be at 100% capacity if they were on the priority list. Now the concern was related to the impact on CCI. And but I also believe that Collingwood's population growth is outstripping the projections as well. And I believe that they would not be at 85% after 5 years. In fact, they would be at 100%. I think we at least have to realize that forecasting is not a perfect science. After all, recently we had to approve an elementary school on an emergency basis. And that has resulted in Wasaga Beach students as low as kindergarten being bused out of our community. So I think it's also important to note that the ministry had previously indicated that if we were put on the priority list, that they would provide the required funding. And just my last comment, after watching the meeting, my comments had nothing to do with this being an election year. It's about what our children here deserve in Wasaga Beach. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And as someone who in 2005 collected signatures and presented it to the board, I think all of us are agreeing that our students deserve this. There is one pot of money. The taxpayers contribute to all of this, and we just don't have it to do everything all at once. And as far as Wasaga Beach being added last night, it was very clearly pointed out in that meeting that we just didn't meet the requirements or the criteria for it. And for the board to take another project off that did meet that criteria really would have impacted their reputation for putting forward strong business cases, and quite frankly, I think would have hurt Wasaga Beach down the line. So I understand that we want a school and we want it now, but there are rules to follow as well and policies. But Chair Lloyd, did you have anything to add?
Thank you very much. And you know, in response to Councillor Belanger, I can tell you that the board is very committed to its high school. We know Wasaga Beach wants a high school and we are committed to that. But we are also obligated to work within the parameters of the funding and the capital priority submissions. And we, you know, it is not a pressure in Wasaga Beach at the moment at the secondary level, because those students are being accommodated within the board, and we look at collectively, and it would have left CCI under enrolled. And we are well aware of all the planning and numbers. Our staff work very closely with the staff of Wasaga Beach with respect to housing development, and the margin of error with our staff is very limited, and very few errors or mistakes are made, and their projections are very, very accurate and have been historically. So we work with that, and the ministry is very well aware of all of that as well. But you know, it is unfortunate that it didn't meet the criteria this time, but the numbers are not there to support the investment and the funding that would be needed to build a comprehensive high school. So we're close. Wasaga Beach is close, and you know what, if the growth projections, Councillor Belanger, that you're saying are accurate and it does produce the pupils that we need, it may open earlier than 29 and 30 if we can build that business case, and we're committed to doing so when we can build a case that we believe the ministry will fund. And you know, governments before have made promises, and it's a different government in a different day with a different Minister of Education, and things change. And so we work within the parameters we currently have, and we make the best decisions on behalf of all of our students in Simcoe County, which we're required to. And I think moving forward, if the growth does happen, as you've suggested, that maybe we might see an opening sooner than 29-30.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'll just look to our CIO. Maybe our communications department could share last night's link to that meeting, because I really do think a lot of good information was shared that our residents, it might be nice for them to, oh, I see Mike's popped up here. Mike, is that something that we could do?
Through your worship, yes, we intend to share the update from today from Trustee Lloyd, and we intend to share some information from last night's board meeting through our high school Q&A, which is on our website at wasagabeach.com.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Councillor Watson, you were next.
Thank you, Your Worship. This councillor is very happy with the news that Ms. Lloyd has brought to us today, and Tanya Snell. Actually here a proposed or a date in the future that this may happen is very exciting news. I sit here with a number on this council, including her worship and Councillor Wells, and Councillor Foster's not here today, but everyone's got a lot of, as they call it, sweat equity into getting a high school into Wasaga Beach. I first sat on council in the year 2000, and we were talking about it then and talking to the school board, and it's been a long process, but it's going to happen, and I'm very happy to hear this, and I thank you for bringing that news to us. And I think we're doing through our economic development, I'd like to see a report come forward, but I think we were taking some data ourselves from the new builds in town to try and find out who's moving in and how many children and school-age children are moving to town. So hopefully we'll get that information in the near future too, that we can augment anything that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're taking other steps as well when we did our circulation to the GTA to show, our new arena library build and all the things that are happening in our community. Those are things now that parents are looking at as incentives to move here. A lot of people are working from home now. And so I think we'll see a lot more families coming up and moving into the many new homes that are being built. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Jody. It's been quite a while since I've seen you. I guess I just want to comment. I was very happy to hear you say about the number of students and building a comprehensive facility. I know from my experience that bums in seats generate a number of teachers, and that number of teachers have to be sure that all of the mandatory programs are offered. And so in order to create a school that has the technologies for the OEAP programs, for students who want to go to trades and come out of the high school with a background of hours built towards their trade, is highly important. And so I appreciate your words comprehensive. I think based on past history of, I can't speak for today, I've been out of it for too long, but 800 even is a bit of a stretch to providing programs. The number that floated around when I was there was closer to 1,200 to provide those kinds of extra programming beyond the mandatory. And I think the one thing we always have to be aware of, and I'm not trying to put it down in any way, shape, or form, I'm all for it, but I think the other thing we have to be aware of is that we don't create a series of smaller schools that in which none of them can meet all of those priorities and all of those comprehensive programs. So I'm excited by the thought of the 2029. I think based on our growth, it's reasonable to expect that our numbers will be well in excess of the number needed to build that comprehensive school by that period of time. And I'll just give you one brief little anecdote. When I first became a principal, that was back in history a long time ago, we received every year from the planning department, the projected number of students that we were going to have the following year, and therefore how many teachers that generated for our school. And my first couple of years as a principal, I spent many hours poring over those numbers and trying to, show that we were going to be better than that, or maybe not as good as that. But, I spent hours poring over those numbers and then sent back reports that said, oh, no, you're not quite right. It's this or it's that or it's something different. And every year, it turned out the planning department was dead on. And so I'm just going to make that comment that unless things have changed dramatically, I have to compliment and the planning department at the board. They have it down pat. They have a system that works, and their calculation of numbers is generally pretty much dead on. Thanks, Jody.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Wells. And that's why I say, when people hear things out in the community or they read it on Facebook, go to the source, go to the board, ask the numbers, get accurate figures, because far too often things get skewed into something that isn't accurate anymore. And that just riles up a community and gets them upset. So I think this is a good news story. It's, as somebody said last night, it's not a matter of if, it is when, and it's definitely on the horizon. So thank you both for being here today. I really appreciate it. And I don't see any other hands up. So enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. We do have a motion here. If I could have a mover and seconder, please, that council receive the update regarding the new elementary school build and information regarding requirements for a secondary school from Ms. Jody Lloyd, Chair of Simcoe County District School Board, for information. Councillor Watson and Councillor Kinney,